Hey, Ryan Reynolds here. Wishing you a very happy half-off holiday because right now Mint Mobile is offering you the gift of 50% off unlimited. To be clear, that's half price, not half the service. And Mint is still premium unlimited wireless for a great price. So that means a half day, yeah? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Hello, family. I'm Janaea Future Khan, and this is Dark Woke. Before we begin, I just want to say thank you to all the listeners out there, and a special shout out to all the supporters of the show. It really means the world to me. If you'd like to become a supporter of the show, you can find the link in the write-up below. Okay. I did the thing. I sounded normal. Now I can talk about how unbelievably angry I am that this is the state of the world and the state of the country that we live in. Oh, I just wake up and there's a new news clip on the fact that 200, really over 200 Guatemalan kids are just facing deportation. That's it. A judge, by the way, has temporarily blocked that. Thank goodness, right? Because of the government's false pretexts. What are those pretexts? Just racism. But at this point, anything that goes up to the Supreme Court, we know that Trump's got them in the bag. This is just normal. People can be disappeared on the street, but this is the thing. This is the thing. First of all, don't touch my Jimmys. Don't take away my Jimmy Kimmel. Don't touch my Jimmys, okay? We're hitting Jimmy Kimmel, but we're going to be really talking about words from the likes of Ezra Klein and Obama in the face of the murder of Charlie Kirk and really the state of the country and the fact that we keep getting betrayed by our so-called leaders who are supposed to lead us out of it. My question is, how are you going to lead us out of it when you can't even say what it is, right? Let's start with Jimmy Kimmel. What happened there? So Jimmy Kimmel does what he does. He gets online. He has an opening monologue, which is very standard of late night shows, right? We already lost my favorite lesbian in the world, right? Colbert. I don't want to live in the world without America's most beloved lesbian. Give me back Stephen Colbert. But this Jimmy Kimmel thing is really, really insidious. Now, we knew when Charlie Kirk was murdered, right, by Tyler Robinson, ostensibly for his hate mongering, which is the only thing we know to be true, which would mean that Tyler Robinson is not some leftist, right, which they want him to be so badly, right? He's just normal. He was a normal guy who thought, I don't want to live in a world where this kind of hate is seen as a status quo. This incident, right? A regular person deciding to take action, you know what that is an indication of? An unbelievable failure of leadership, and not the leadership that is currently in this administration. Oh no, the leadership that's meant to take us out of there. Does the left have problems? Oh yeah. Oh, we'll have so much time to get into that. So you know that I love talking about the problems that the left has and also addressing some of those problems and bringing forth some solutions. But no, this is not about that, right? This is the lack of leadership, the lack of a backbone that anybody in the Democratic establishment or the Democratic establishment alum, right, that they're actually demonstrating in the face of fascism, which they can't even really name at this point. Okay, back to Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel was canceled. He was canceled immediately, right? Why? Because of disparaging remarks he made of Charlie Kirk, except I've listened to the clip. There are no disparaging remarks of Charlie Kirk. None. Nothing at all existed in Jimmy Kimmel's monologue. Now, I'm hesitant to play it. I'm going to have to, if I do, I'm going to have to keep, pausing it so that I don't get a copyright strike. But I want you to hear it for yourself if you haven't already. What is it exactly that was said on Jimmy Kimmel's segment that made it so immediately Donald Trump jumped to action, said, you're using disparaging remarks of Charlie Kirk, and therefore the show was canceled? And why, right? Why would these studio execs simply capitulate to the demands of a demented king? we'll get into that too. First, here's some clips from Jimmy. And remember, I'm going to be so annoyingly intervening because they will come after me for copyright.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them.
And look, in this moment, he's talking about Charlie Robinson. I'm sorry, my apologies. I put their names together. Oof. I've been reading too much. In this case, he's talking about Tyler Robinson. More details are coming out, but I do want to illustrate again. If there was anything at all that Tyler Robinson had said or done that was explicitly left-wing, like explicitly so clear, you think it wouldn't be plastered on every wall, on every ceiling, on every news segment? It would be shoved down our throats in every way you could imagine. But instead, we have couchfucker J.D. Vance jumping on to Charlie Kirk's podcast, right, after he's dead and gone, to tell us that it was the left, to tell us that the left is so dangerous, the left is so deadly, that we're the real danger in America, even as, right, we're seeing the normalization of hatred and bigotry in ways unprecedented. But there's so much more to say about that.
Everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House.
So, right, the White House posts this thing. I'm going to jump over this part so that I don't get in trouble. But basically, I'm going to play this clip of Donald Trump because this is free for use. And in this clip that Jimmy Kimmel is referencing, Donald Trump is being asked about Charlie Kirk. Why don't you hear for yourself how he is mourning, right? This president that is using every resource that he has to eliminate any political opponent whatsoever. How is he mourning this guy? Because he's using Charlie Kirk's death to his advantage. How deeply is Donald Trump grieving over Charlie Kirk?
Condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
That's right. That's right. That's it. He just played a segment from Donald Trump himself, President of America, right? President of the United States saying, oh, yeah, kind of sad. But like, did you see that we're building things over there? And nobody's been able to build those things before. Did you see? Do you see what I did? Did you see what a big boy I am in my big boy pants? All right. So what was Kimmel's response to that?
Construction. Demolition. Construction.
So right there, he was, the joke that Kimmel is referencing is that clearly Donald Trump was in the other stages of grief that we are not familiar with, which is demolition and construction.
This is not how an adult grieves the murder of someone he called a friend. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish, okay?
I personally really like that line. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish. But that was all it took for NBC to pull Jimmy Kimmel's show. So why? Why were they so quick to do that? And this isn't the first time it's happened, right? We know that it's happened to Colbert, but we also know that it's happened on multiple levels. Some people well-known, some people not so well-known, some people who are just regular people in their daytime jobs, right? Who are getting doxxed, who are on websites now, right? And sometimes it's more prominent people. Sometimes it's people in the government, right? Like our Federal Reserve Governor, Lisa Cook, who we'll talk about in a bit. So why? You know, isn't it funny that it always comes down to money, right? Isn't it funny that it always comes down to money? I'm going to play this segment right quick of Kara Swisher talking to Anderson Cooper, right, on the media merger that is implicated and really behind all of this. Because ultimately, it's always the rich men, right? Wealth being hoarded in the hands of a few. It's always rich men terrified of upsetting the richer men, lest they not get richer by offending them. I hate that it's so simple, but let me play this segment to demonstrate or further illustrate exactly what was at stake here. And then, oh my God, then we're going to light this thing on fire because I am so angry. This is not natural, right? Waking up through this, living through this is not natural. It's irrational to try to reason with bigotry always. And there's a part of our minds, right? There's a part of our minds that are trying to make sense of the inhumane, of the cruelty, of the unkindness, of the insensible, right? Acts that this government is taking, but it's always about money. And they will use anything to make that, they will use anything to grow their own wealth. But let me just play this so we can really understand exactly what merger, right? And who stood to make money. Again, here's the segment on with Kara Swisher and Anderson Cooper.
Brendan Carr is rather thirsty for attention. That's one thing. And it's unbecoming a public official, but that's nothing new for him. This is what he does. I mean, I think one thing you're leaving out is Nexstar is trying to do a very large merger with Tegna. And so they will do whatever it takes to satisfy someone
that's important.
who's a kind of a toady to Donald Trump.
Right. That's an important point because that merger would require the approval of the FCC, correct?
Correct. That's correct. And so they're trying to do.
And who has the FCC in their pocket? The Trump administration.
Anything he can do to shake them down on behalf of Donald Trump, he's doing, which is including these people who are alleged free speech warriors have turned out to be cancel culture fans. And so, Jimmy Kimmel also tweeted something out saying he was so sorry for this death and we should put aside our differences. He's a comic. Comics should be able to make jokes.
Comics should be able to make jokes. I seem to recall that the right was a huge proponent of that, but we know that isn't the case. And here's the thing, right? Media companies are going to punish any Trump critics if they want their mega mergers approved. That's it. They will always kowtow to the leadership of a demented mad king who looks every ounce as unclean and gross as he is inside, right? Just for mega mergers. And you ask us, how is this not illegal? Well, that's why antitrust laws are essential. But that's the thing. All of these mega mergers are precisely why the quality of life for everyday American citizens has plummeted in the last 2 decades, right? This is why it was essential that we have people like Alina Khan as the FTC chair. It's why she was one of the first targets that they got out there, right? It's partly why Elizabeth Warren was, in my opinion, and the opinion of other smart people, the best candidate. Because not only did she hold some socialist views, right? She had a very, very strong antitrust position. And she was able to build coalitions in the government at a time when that still made sense, right? And this is not to say that I don't love my little matzo ball, or if I could vote, I wouldn't for him when the option came. But we just weren't honest because we're not smart when it comes to economy. We're not smart when it comes to understanding the corporatocracy that is governing our lives. That's okay. It's a thing that we just have to build up a little bit. We'll be fine, right? But again, I want to illustrate that Jimmy Kimmel was kicked off of NBC because of a mega merger. And that mega merger, all of these mega mergers that have happened in the last 20 years is exactly why the quality of life for everyday American citizens has plummeted in the last 10 to 20 years. It's accelerated the concentration of wealth in the hands of fewer and fewer men. So we have fewer options. We don't get to make as informed decisions from several strong options. No, we get 1 or 2, right? And that's it. And those 1 or 2 options that we get, well, they curate what we see, and they curate how we see it, and they curate when we see it.
We all love a legendary comeback, and Degree Original Cool Rush is back and better than ever. Cool Rush isn't just a scent, it's a movement, a fan favorite that delivers bold, fresh vibes and all-day sweat protection. Whether you have a man that spends hours in the gym, heads into the office early, or is just trying to stay fresh on a long day, Cool Rush has their back. Head to your local Walmart or Target and grab Degree Cool Rush, the fan favorite scent from the world's #1 antiperspirant brand.
And who's holding this wealth? Who's hoarding this wealth? Oh, it's just very decrepit. Old, feathery men, right? Amoral men. They don't care who they hurt. So yes, we all know that the realities of xenophobia and homophobia and racism are what's shaping so much of our world. But here's the thing. Some of them might be racist. Some of them not. Some of them might be weirdos like Peter Thiel, who believes in the Antichrist, right? Even though he's a homosexual himself. Right? I'm like, to them, you literally are that, right? Or Musk, who will become whatever he needs to be. And I do believe that he is a disgusting, deplorable human being, right? But is he a racist? Is he transphobic? Does it matter at this point? Because what we do know is the only thing that is God to these men is money, and they will, whether they believe it or not, they will morph into whatever they need to become that's going to make them the most money the fastest. And because of the concentration of wealth, right? You get to a point where the bigger the whale, the bigger the mouth. They can't keep, when you have hundreds of billions of dollars, you can't just keep making that kind of money by selling and buying companies and by sitting on board chairs. There's now only so many. So the only way to have relentless access, unbridled access to wealth is to literally own the government, is to become the government. And that is what we're seeing now. That is why the billionaire class is so dangerous. So they'll keep waving and dangling the race thing and racism, and they will profit off of it. And it's not that racism would not exist without it. Oh no, it's that it's so persistent and pernicious when it's galvanized by capitalism, which is exactly what's happening, because the only thing that these guys care about, right? And why racism persists is because of things like the bottom line and the bottom dollar. And that's it. They will honor their God, which is money, and do whatever it takes to earn it. That's it. And this is what the rich have always done, right? Oh, the working class are starting to figure some things out. Throw racism there. Make sure we separate them out. And for some reason, white people in this country fall for it over and over and over again. And don't worry, I know about the weird numbers of Latino and Black men who are suddenly like, yeah, totally. Sure. Yeah, I definitely fit in there, right? Please be so serious. Does everybody have CTE over there? Do I have to remind us of Bacon's Rebellion? Remember when we were all, this is one of my favorite little yaps. Some of you have heard this before, but it blows my mind every time, right? The rich will always use identity and race and dangle it in front of poorer white people and say, and working class white people and indentured white people and say, hey, this is why your life sucks, right? Black people and trans people, this is why your life sucks. Not because I have all your shit, not because I have all your wages, because I literally don't pay you what you deserve, right? Even though you're generating wealth in the American economy, that's the thing. When you hoard wealth, right? The wealth that we generate by our work, by our products, by our output, doesn't actually circle back when we buy things that we need, right? Like groceries, right? Like equipment to do things like this. It doesn't go back into the economy. It goes back into their hands. The middle class and the working class keep the American economy alive. It is the billionaires that are starving it out. But let's go back to Bacon's Rebellion, right? Let's go back to a time in early America, right? Some of the less than best, right? We're not getting the best. We didn't get the best whites in America. They were the ones who were so mad they couldn't hack it in England that they came over here and thought, okay, we're gonna make our own way. We're gonna make our own things, right? And this is before chattel slavery really was any kind of norm. Before chattel slavery became a norm in America, right? You had indentured servitude, and you had some slaves, but some were white and some were black. A lot were black. You had more indentured servitudes with white folks, but essentially we're all working in the same ways. And there were, all the land that was being stolen was more concentrated because the American project was still out in expansion, even though indigenous peoples were fighting back and doing very well. And some were like, we're genuinely confused about this because their quality of life and their way of life was significantly better, which is why years later, right? You had literal presidents who had to say, hey, we got to stop sending our people out to these, indigenous tribes because they love it so much, they just don't come back. So what happened when they saw that white people and black people of the working and middle class, well, they didn't have a middle class back then, so of the working class and, of the servitude class, were coming together and saying, actually, something's wrong with this, right? And we're doing so very effectively. What happened? Well, rich people, they got together, right, the merchant class, and they were like, what if we offered these indentured servants, right, these indentured slaves, what if we offered the whites a little bit more? Nothing that would ever get them close to where we are. And what if we actually got them to do the jobs that we needed to do, which is fight indigenous people to keep expanding the land that we would own, right, ultimately? What if we just did that? And so what happened? Oh, yeah, they offered white folks who were rebelling with black folks and winning, I might add, because that's why the rich had to change things, because they were doing well, right? So what happened? They thought, okay, let's just offer them a little bit of land that we don't own at all. That land belongs to indigenous people, but we don't want to fight them. So let's offer them that land that we don't own and some muskets and some fucking corn. Okay. First of all, muskets were you had to pump that shit like 30 times and you're just as likely to blow your hand off than you were to shoot anybody, right? The shittiest jerk off guns you could imagine. And corn, maize, corn, starch. Rich people don't even eat starch. Corn. That is the origin of the term corny. I don't know if you guys knew that when they sold us out. It's not literally, but that's my favorite story. That's how I see it, because I can't think of anything fucking cornier, and they've been playing the same strategy ever since. Okay? They manipulate, and for whatever reason, right? Racism. Definitely racism. We remain very easily manipulated. But this is what really grinds my gears, okay? This. I'm pulling this up right here. I'm going to play this clip of Obama because you've heard me yap about Ezra Klein and the likes, right? Because it's not just him, it's most of the Democratic establishment. This is, there's violence here, and Charlie Kirk practiced politics the right way, even though he didn't have a single Charlie Kirk quote in that op-ed. And then the next day after I said what I said, Ta-Nehisi Coates comes out and literally just breaks the shit down and hammers it down by not only naming that there wasn't a single quote, but again, the contradictions, right? If you can't name something, you're saying Charlie Kirk practiced politics the right way. Right. Because they don't think of things like words, and words turn into policies that then therefore destroy people's lives as political violence. No, apparently only a gun is political violence. Here's one of my favorite quotes from Charlie Kirk. And this is to all the Zionists out there who believe, right? Who believe that white supremacy is the way to win. I will say, though, it's because many Zionists themselves are white supremacists. I just think the contradictions are humorous. This is one of Charlie Kirk's quotes. Jewish donors, Kirk claimed, were the number one funding mechanism of radical open border, neoliberal, quasi-Marxist policies, cultural institutions, and nonprofits. The philosophical foundation of anti-whiteness has been largely financed by Jewish donors in the country. Right? This is in addition to him saying that gays should be stoned to death, right? That trannies were disgusting, deviant, that Black women had sub IQs. And in response to all of this, right, which I'm going to further scaffold, I want you to hear what Obama had to say, because, you know, we're in this moment. We're in this really awful moment politically, right? Where, yes, we've all been inundated with political violence on some level, not the status quo, of course, because the political violence that was experienced by Charlie Kirk, right, is the very one that he normalized and aided in normalizing in this country. So most Democrats, most liberals, many people will look to someone like Barack Obama for leadership, for clarity on what we need to do for the fight ahead. This is what Obama had to say in response.
And so when I hear not just our current president, but his aides, who have a history of calling political opponents vermin, enemies, who need to be targeted, that speaks to a broader problem that we have right now. And something that we're going to have to
clapped for that, but sure,
grapple with, all of us, whether we're Democrats, Republicans, independents.
You know, sorry, even that clap irritated me, right? He said it speaks to a broader problem, which suggests, right, that it is more than just the subset that he referenced. He referenced, right, the right. He referenced the right, referring to their political opponents as vermin, right? He said it speaks to a broader problem, and then they clapped, which means that extends across the board. What things has the left done? What has the left said that's had any actual impact, right? What was the thing that we were saying about deplorables? Was that it? Right? That's deplorable. What you say is deplorable, right? I'm saying this to you because of your political beliefs, which say that people shouldn't have human rights. What does the left believe? Oh, right, that people should have human rights. Okay, I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page.
We have to recognize that on both sides, undoubtedly there are people who are extremists and who say things that are contrary to what I believe are America's core values.
I just want you to know, my heart rate skyrocketed when I was listening to this. And the both sides is just loud and ringing in my head. And I'm hearing what he's saying. And I understand I'm going to contextualize it because it's a little bit more nuanced, but it's still incredibly dangerous, right? He is saying, I want to pull it back, but first I'm going to let him finish, right? I'm going to let him finish.
But I will say that those extreme views were not in my White House. I wasn't embracing them. I wasn't empowering them. I wasn't putting the weight of the United States government behind extremist views. And that is when
you know, actually, I am so frustrated. I'm so frustrated, right? We have extreme people, right? There's going to be some people on both sides with extremist views, okay? That's too generic, but I can let that stand, right? And he said, I didn't let that in. I didn't let that into my White House. I didn't embrace it. I didn't normalize it. But again, what are the extremist views of the left? Why am I so clear on what the extremist views of the right are? Oh, I'm crystal clear on those. I am arguably more well-read, right? More well-informed than average people can be because this is what I do. This is what I do. I do research, and oh, do I do research. I like to know exactly what I'm talking about, right? I make corrections when I don't, but I tend not to need to make corrections, right? I'm a little rusty, but even still. And I couldn't tell you that there's any kind of consensus on what leftist extremist views are because they are never articulated, because nobody knows what they are because they don't exist. They don't exist. You want to know what the extremist leftist views are? Free education, free healthcare, food on the table, fair wages.
When we have the weight of the United States government behind extremist views, we've got a problem.
Okay. I'm done. I'm done. We've got to get into this now, because I sat there and I listened to us and I listened to us and I listened to this over and over again, and I played it over and over again, and I watched the entire thing. I am so sick and tired, right, of this both sides framing. We have got to stop with this. It is so irresponsible at this point. I am not going to deny, right? I'm going to give as much ground to the other argument as I possibly can so that you can see that even if we take what they say at face value, it's bullshit, okay? There was let's say this trans shooter that happened a couple weeks ago. Okay, let's say the person was a leftist. Let's even say that Tyler Robinson is a leftist, which he is not, right? But there's no evidence. There's no credible evidence that says he is. But let's say that it is. It's still 1 in 99. It's 1%, right? Less than 1%. Then the 99%. But let's just say it's 1 out of 99. The 99 shooters, 99 mass shooters in America are white men, and men in general, but overwhelmingly white men. To say both sides, to create this false equivalency of there are these two extremist views is so irresponsible as a leader at this point. It's like comparing a boil on somebody's ass to stage 4 cancer, right? Has the left been a pain in the ass? Oh, absolutely yes. But the other one is systemically and systematically slowly killing us by replicating itself over and over and over again. So the miracle of the functioning of the human body is completely destroyed. That's the difference. And to suggest that these things are the same is so unbelievably disgusting at this point when we need clarity, right? We need political clarity and we need leadership. What has the left done to actually invoke violence? Truly, right? Okay, again, let's give as much ground as we possibly can. Antifa burned a car, right? Said, fuck the police. An ACAB, right? What has the right done from Charlottesville, right, to abducting people on the streets, to the January 6th insurrection? What did BLM do? March with signs and try to change policy. And what systemic power does the left have, right? Extremist views, extremist violence, they're the same, both sides. What systemic power does the left have? It is, I am so concerned, right? Okay, in the American consciousness, we've allowed the Democratic establishment to say that socialism and fascism are equally dangerous. That's absurd. It's just simply absurd. And also ignorant, because guess what? In 2010, right? In 2010, socialist views among the Democrats was, here's a good little graph of that, right? Socialist views in 2010 among Democrats was 7 points. What is it now? 36 points. That's on CNN, right? That's the net popularity of socialism. Right? What is socialism, right? If we actually don't play a part in the deranged lunatic mind of the sort of capitalist establishment, right, in the corporatocracy, it's just more options for more people, more equality and more equity for more people, better quality of life for more people, not hoarding wealth for a small subset of you. Again, you're worried about the wrong 1%. Everybody's talking about trans this and trans that. And you know what? They're hitting us. They're hitting us on the ground and in real time. I didn't want to bring this up, but part of the reason why, it didn't work out yesterday is because there were raids. I'm going to give more context for this later, but there were FBI raids. There was my family was raided by the FBI yesterday, and they are talking to lawyers right now, and I have some footage, and I will share it. But when I recorded that last episode and I said that they're coming after us in real time, I still somehow didn't think that it would happen this quickly, and it would hit people that I love this quickly. So again, right? What systemic power does the left have to say that these types of violence are equal, right? You know what the ultimate irony of this is? That it was under Obama's administration, right? That the threat of domestic terrorism in this country by right men reached a height, so much so that the FBI and the CIA, a federally funded report went out on how it said this, far-right extremism was the greatest domestic terror threat in America. It was under his administration that this happened, that this was said, that this was reported on. So to make this equivalency at this stage, right? And I know because I read that report. I worked. It was part of my work. And it was at that time that the government, not even the government, certain bad actors across the GOP started to, and bad actors from the CIA and FBI also popularized the term Black identity extremist, right? Remember that? Remember Black identity extremists? And they used that to come after people who look like me. But it wasn't people who look like me that was murdering people in malls and in schools, right? We were not a domestic terror threat to this country. But the idea of Black leadership continues to be something that terrifies the imagination of the American conscious. And it will continue to do so. It will continue to do so until we confront the original sin that is chattel slavery here in America. You want to know why the popular vote doesn't matter? You want to know why what Americans actually want across the board is never reflected in our government? From stopping the funding of Israel to just a better quality of life, to better healthcare, right? Outside of the propaganda machine, the Electoral College. Well, why? Why do we have an Electoral College? Because they lost the Civil War and they threw on because the South did not want to lose access to its Black slaves. And so they threw tantrums and had a whole fucking war, right? And even though the parties were reversed at that time, they bitched and moaned so much. And the ground that the political leaders who would be Democrats today gave those people is exactly why we're here now. They bitched and said, we're not going to be able to make as much money. So they gave them money. Well, what about, we still need access to people. So they created, right? They created prison slavery, right? They turned it from plantation slavery to prison slavery. So now they were sweeping up, they created bankruptcy laws so that if any Black person that was wandering, if just imagine you were free one day, just one day you're free, right? You've been enslaved your whole life, one day you're free. You've not been allowed to read, even though we all know that Black folks still managed to carve out ways of life, right? But imagine you're out and you don't have any money. Many can't read. You don't have anywhere to live. So they created bankruptcy laws and they swept them up, right? They said, hey, show us proof of employment. Show us proof of, that you live somewhere. Okay, no, you don't. Okay, great. I'm going to throw you in a prison. And then the prisons are going to rent you out to these landowners, right? And what else did they bitch and moan about? Well, they said, our states are smaller and we don't get equal representation. So we demand equal seats, even though they're larger states with more people in them. Right? No, we should have equal representation, and hence we have the Electoral College. All of it has to do with race and racism. America wouldn't even be one of the superpowers of the world if they weren't able to concentrate wealth through chattel slavery. So here we are. And we're still being told that there's a false equivalency, that we're still being told that there's violence on both sides. Even now, what systemic power does the left have, right? Let's say we don't even argue that point. Right? And I'm sorry if you had to turn the volume down because you were young, but let's say you don't even argue that point. Let's say we don't argue the point. Let's say that there is power on the left, right? Right, but let's say there is. Let's say we have some kind of systemic power. The Trump administration has the Supreme Court, right? The entirety of American Congress, as the Senate, right? And it has the House, and it has the administration, right? The loudest shows in the world, the loudest shows in America, the 9 out of the top 10 podcasts in the country are right wing. They beat our audience 5-1. The Majority Report put out a great report on this year, right? They beat us in an audience level of 5-1. They're better funded. They're better listened to, right? So even culturally, I'm even adding the culture to it, right? They have a great information pipeline, and we're being told over and over again that we have the same. Is it the left? Did the left take Kilmar? Is the left abducting people randomly out on the street? Is the left destroying public education, right? Is the left brutalizing and silencing anybody who politically dissents, all pro-Palestine activists? Is the left inciting Google to hand over documents to the FBI? Did the left pull off Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel and get Lisa Cook fired by using the Supreme Court, even though she's a gangster? Because she's a black woman in power? Did the left get rid of Karen Adia, who's the last black journalist at the Washington Post? What violence? What systemic power does the left have to see through the kinds of violence that we're seeing today? By the right, to suggest that these things are the same is one of the worst kinds of irresponsible leadership. I'm disgusted. I am so disgusted by what I'm seeing. It is so clear to me, right, that these are still ideas to these folks. I'm not saying that they haven't experienced threats in their lives. Of course they have. They're political figures, especially somebody like Obama. There were more attempts on his life than any other president up to that point. But they don't need to live in the realities. They can afford security. But you know who couldn't? My family, that had their home raided by the FBI. And the FBI doesn't have to identify themselves in the same way anymore. They're wearing masks just like ICE agents. This is not some thing it's not an idea to discuss. It's a reality that we are living in that is destroying people's lives right now. You want to know what you do as a political leader when we're dealing with a fascist regime? You want to know what you say when you're sitting there and you're asked about Charlie Kirk and the violence we've seen in this country? You say clearly and explicitly, right? You say your children are unsafe in American schools because right-wing nut jobs made mass shootings part of the curriculum. You say that the reason that your children are unsafe in American schools, right, is because they can't get vaccines, right? Because we've destroyed the curriculum. That it's now, you want to know what your children's going to have in school now? You're going to sit there and they're going to ask, well, why is 12-year-old Sally illiterate and pregnant with polio, right? But at least there's not a pride flag. That's where we're headed. That's what we're destined for, right? Why 14-year-old Timmy is a gambling addict who can't count, who's just huffing ketamine nasal spray. And God, do we need him on it? Because otherwise he's going to have a gun in hand real quick because he's so full of rage and he has no idea why. Because we've just fostered antisocial, fascist views that isolate and alienate everyone from each other and tells us, oh, it's all about American values, but it's about flatlining everybody to act exactly the same way. It's about obsequience and obedience to the fascist ideology that has become normalized. That's what you say. You tell them that the reason why you wake up with anxiety every day, and the reason why you can't pay your bills is because the GOP and the Trump administration has destroyed the economy, and it is because of billionaires. And we need to have caps on political spending. And we need to abolish the Electoral College. And we need to get rid of the filibuster under a Democratic president. And that you're going to change things. That you're going to adopt more socialist views because that's exactly what we need, because we do not have a political position to fight fascism. We just have diet fascism across the fucking Democratic establishment. That's what you say. Haven't you made enough money to take some risk now? You want to know what you do as a political leader? You make hatred so fucking uncool that it's unthinkable that we ever allowed bigots to be in power and seize it in the first place. You want to know what you do as our political leaders? You marginalize the fascists. You marginalize the fascists. You make them embarrassed to speak out loud their shitty beliefs, and you put in protections in our fucking Constitution, and you codify them for women and for black folks, and you fucking end this gerrymandering bullshit, and you fucking get rid of these goddamn prisons the way that they are. Because their expansion is exactly why we have detention centers that are just being filled up with random people based on racism that was okayed by the Supreme Court, because we don't even have any kind of intervention for that. These niggas are staying alive forever. When the Supreme Court life fucking, position was originally adopted, the life expectancy of people was like 42 or some shit, because they all had scurvy or whatever. This is not the leadership that we deserve. I'm so disgusted. I am so disgusted. I will never accept the false equivalency that we are the same. As somebody that is proudly on the left, I won't accept that. And I don't. And we shouldn't. And right now, at this moment, when we need political leadership, when we need real power, and we have to build it, let us be very clear about who those leaders are going to be, and let us protect them, right? None of this bullshit. Palestine was a policy issue, right? Every issue is a policy issue, and we do not get people with our belief systems into the government. This is our lives. So you want to get out there and march on the street? Who the fuck do you think we were talking to when you were marching? Each other? No, you were petitioning the government to do what you wanted. This fringe movement on the right seized power. They took it from even, the more relaxed, normal conservatives. They were still disgusting, but, they followed tradition. Are we going to continue to allow ourselves to be out-organized by white supremacists? Are we going to continue to allow ourselves to be out-organized by fascists? I can tell you for a fact that I simply cannot. I cannot go to sleep at night knowing that I could have done more if I had tried things differently. But I am clear about who is not with us. I am so crystal clear about that. And I know that it's hard to imagine that we could do anything meaningful or powerful, but my God, look what we've achieved. When we fight, we win. It's not just a saying, it is a fact, it is a truth, so we consolidate the hearts and minds of thinking and caring people. We consolidate the hearts and minds of the masses, and we fucking marginalize the shit out of these people. They've always been here, and they always will be here, and that's fine, right? We just have to make them as irrelevant and inconsequential as everyone else is, with bad thoughts and ideas, just like we had with the anti-vaxxers, right? The anti-vaxxers, what a fucking joke, right? We take for granted the medications that other people in the world are desperate for. And they could develop them. They could develop those medications themselves, except we take their resources and keep them in a state where they never could. And now they can't access them either. No, we deserve better than this. And you know what? We're going to get it. We're going to get it. We're going to get it, because there is I told you, and I see it, and I know it, there's a sleeping giant. And the fact that they're preemptively striking at Black Lives Matter leaders right now tells you exactly how terrified they are of a movement that is galvanized under Black liberation theory. I just didn't know how afraid they were. They're looking for pretext and they're trying to scare people into being silent right now. So, expect me and expect us. This anger that you're hearing, this is me waking up. Like, this is me fully alive. This isn't just anger, it's energy, it's vitality, it's life. This is how much I believe in the left. This is how much I believe in what the left believes. I have pride in being a leftist. I trust us implicitly, even though we're goofy as hell sometimes. So, that seems like a good moment to end this episode. You know, I'm here with you. I'm here with you. We're in this together. And I promise you, this isn't even close to being over. I know I've seen firsthand what we're capable of when we come together. And that is exactly why this administration and everyone that supports it is so deeply invested in keeping us apart. Fucking cornballs. No more corniness. None. So with that, I want to say thank you to all the listeners out there. Thank you to the supporters of this show. All right, shout out to Brooklyn, our producer. Shout out to LW, who's been just holding me down. And shout out to each and every one of you. Thank you so much for just being here with me and being patient with me while Dark Woke has sort of gathered itself. I believe that this is our fight to win. So, with that,
I'm talking to you told me I was blind, and then I started to see. You turned me around.
something's coming, y'all. It's coming. Something's coming. I hope you're ready because we're about to be fighting.